This year's flu season is shaping up to be a particularly bad one for Canadians. More than 4,600 cases were reported this past week alone. Here to tell us more is our medical correspondent, Dr. Karl Kabasele. So how bad is the flu outbreak this year?
Well, you know what? This is the worst season since 2009 when we had that big H1N1 outbreak that everybody was quite worried about. Activity level of influenza in Canada is on the increase. There is some flu activity pretty much across the country, same in the U.S. When you look at Europe, interestingly enough, the activity is still low, although it's slowly increasing.
And some places are even closing down their nursing homes.
Yeah, and you know, that's really standard procedure. When you have an outbreak of influenza, which is a serious illness, respiratory illness, particularly for people who are frail or elderly, that's when, if something like that happens in a facility, it gets shut down, nobody's allowed to leave or come in because you don't want to spread that illness to more vulnerable people.
Well, why is it so big here?
That's a good question. You know, it's hard to predict how a season's going to unfold. We don't even really know if we've reached the peak or not. We'll only know sort of in retrospect at the end of the season. But there are a lot of good reasons why the flu thrives during this time of year. So first of all, when it's cold and dry, those conditions are great for the survival of the virus. As it gets cold and the weather gets bad, we all get inside and congregate and we pass germs back and forth. And then when you couple that with the holiday season where people are really getting together, that accelerates the process.
All right, well, how do I know if it's a bad cold that I've caught from all my holiday gatherings or if it's really the flu?
Well, that's an excellent question because, you know, in the medical community, we really take the flu seriously, although people kind of confuse the two things. The flu is a serious respiratory illness, and the usual hallmarks are a fever and a cough because it sort of invades or infects the lungs, and that's what we worry about. Now, with the flu, you can also get things like muscle aches, fatigue, stuffy nose, in some cases nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, that type of thing. And it can really be tenacious and last and stay with you for up to 6 weeks. So this is something that'll lay you flat on your back, whereas a cold, you get some sniffles, maybe a cough, but it tends not to hang on for that long.
So how long are you contagious?
That's the scary thing is that, first of all, you may be infected and have no symptoms. And so for about a day or so before you actually get sick, you could pass it along if you've been infected. And then for about 5 to 7 days after you start to manifest those symptoms, you can pass it on to other people. You're shedding the virus through the droplets of your sneezes and coughs. And that's why we say cover your mouth, cover your nose if you're going to sneeze or cough.
So how do you treat it? I mean, there's chicken soup, but what else?
Sure. So for those people who are vulnerable, so we're thinking about the elderly, people with pre-existing health conditions, there are antiviral drugs. You've probably heard of Tamiflu during the big outbreak of H1N1, and that can be quite effective as long as you treat the person almost immediately within the first few days of them getting sick. That can sort of attenuate the illness. But for most healthy people, you really just have to sort of ride through it and let your immune system fight it. Now, what we do get concerned about are the complications. So the most common complication of flu is pneumonia. And pneumonia may require, if it's bacterial, may require antibiotics. But there are other infections that can happen on top of the flu that we worry about. And that's why we tell people to get the shot so you don't get sick in the first place.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm going. I really am.
That's an excellent idea.
Our medical contributor, Dr. Karl Kabasele.